At 23:17 hours on September 28, 2025, a U.S. Navy P-8 Poseidon Maritime Patrol aircraft detected an unusual acoustic signature in the Sea of Japan, approximately 140 nautical miles east of the North Korean coast. The sonar buoys dropped into the water had picked up machinery sounds consistent with a diesel-electric submarine, but the acoustic profile was wrong. The submarine wasn't moving. Its propulsion systems were running erratically, and it was transmitting emergency signals on frequencies known to be used by the North Korean Navy. The intelligence assessment came within 30 minutes. A North Korean Sinpo-class submarine, one of only 2 operational ballistic missile submarines in the DPRK fleet, was dead in the water. Propulsion failure, communications down, drifting in international waters. And based on its displacement characteristics and the configuration of its launch tubes, it was almost certainly carrying a Pukguksong-3 submarine-launched ballistic missile, a weapon with a range of 1,200 miles, and, intelligence believed, a 100-kiloton nuclear warhead. At 0043 on September 29th, the order came from the President through the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs to Commander Naval Special Warfare Command. Board the submarine, secure the nuclear weapon, and extract both the weapon and the submarine to U.S.-controlled waters before North Korea could mount a rescue operation. Authorization for lethal force. Approved. Rules of engagement. Neutralize all resistance. Timeline. You have until dawn. This is the story of Operation Dark Water. 8 Navy SEALs from SEAL Team 5, 1 disabled submarine carrying a nuclear weapon, 45 North Korean sailors willing to die rather than allow their boat to be captured, and 6 hours to accomplish what military planners called the most dangerous boarding operation since World War II. If you're here for special operations breakdowns and the missions that push SEALs to their absolute limits, hit subscribe on Navy Warfare right now. And comment below, would you board a hostile submarine carrying a nuclear weapon? The North Korean Sinpo-class submarine is a diesel-electric boat approximately 220 feet long, with a crew of 45. It was designed specifically to carry ballistic missiles, a strategic deterrent meant to give North Korea the ability to strike targets across Asia and potentially reach U.S. territory in Alaska or Hawaii. The submarine is primitive by Western standards, with 1970s-era Soviet technology, but it's functional and dangerous. And if it was carrying a nuclear-armed missile, allowing it to fall back into North Korean hands was unacceptable. The boarding team was drawn from SEAL Team 5, based in Coronado, California, but currently deployed aboard the USS Michael Mansour, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer operating in the Sea of Japan. The team leader was Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison, 36, with 14 years in naval special warfare and 3 previous deployments to the Pacific. His team of 7 other operators had trained extensively in submarine operations, close-quarters combat, and handling weapons of mass destruction. But none of them had ever boarded a hostile submarine at sea. The closest parallel was the seizure of the Iranian mine-laying vessel in 1987, but that had been a surface ship. A submarine presented unique challenges: confined spaces, limited entry points, a crew that could scuttle the boat and kill everyone aboard, and the ever-present risk that the nuclear weapon could be sabotaged or detonated. At 01:15, the 8 SEALs loaded into 2 rigid-hull inflatable boats launched from the USS Michael Mansour. The sea state was moderate, 3-foot swells, wind at 15 knots, but the air temperature was 45 degrees and the water was colder. They wore dry suits, carried suppressed HK-4N16 rifles, Sig Sauer P226 pistols, breaching charges, flashbang grenades, and chemical lights. Total equipment weight per operator, 80 pounds. The disabled submarine was 12 miles from the destroyer. The RHIBs covered the distance in 22 minutes, running dark with no lights, guided by GPS and thermal imaging from the P-8 Poseidon overhead. At 01:37, the SEALs reached the submarine. It was on the surface, wallowing in the swells, running lights extinguished. The conning tower was dark, no visible activity on deck, but thermal imaging showed heat signatures inside the hull, crew members moving through the interior compartments. Lieutenant Commander Morrison made the tactical assessment. The submarine had 2 viable entry points: the main deck hatch on top of the conning tower and the forward torpedo loading hatch. Both would be locked from the inside. Breaching either would alert the crew and trigger a response. Speed and violence of action would be critical. We breach the conning tower hatch. Fast entry. Secure the control room first. If they scuttle, we lose everything. Let's move. Subscribe to Navy Warfare for special operations tactics and the reality of maritime boarding operations that most people never see. And tell us, what's more dangerous, boarding a hostile surface ship or a submarine? At Era 142, 4 SEALs climbed onto the submarine's deck using grappling hooks and ascended the conning tower ladder. The other 4 maintained security from the RHIBs, weapons trained on the submarine in case crew members emerged to resist. Senior Chief Petty Officer David Park, the team's breacher, placed a small-shaped charge on the hatch lock. The charge was designed to cut the locking mechanism without causing significant overpressure that could harm anyone in the compartment below, a critical consideration when breaching into a submarine's pressurized interior. Charge set. Breach in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The charge detonated with a sharp crack. The lock mechanism sheared. Morrison immediately pulled the hatch open and dropped a flashbang grenade into the compartment below. The grenade detonated, a blinding flash and a 170 decibel bang designed to disorient anyone in the space. The SEALs flowed into the submarine in a stack, Morrison first, followed by Park, then Chief Petty Officer Marcus Webb and Petty Officer First Class Sarah Chen. They descended the ladder into the control room, weapons up, moving with practiced precision. The control room was chaos. 3 North Korean sailors, temporarily blinded and deafened by the flashbang, stumbled around the compartment. 2 were unarmed. 1 was reaching for a pistol holstered at his belt. "Don't move! Hands up!" Morrison shouted in Korean, a language he'd learned during pre-deployment training. The sailor reaching for the pistol hesitated. That hesitation cost him his life. Park fired a 3-round burst from his suppressed HK-416. The sailor dropped. The other 2 immediately raised their hands. "Flex cuff them. Webb, Chen, secure this compartment. Where's the rest of the crew?" The submarine's layout was standard Soviet design. Control room amidships, crew quarters forward, reactor and engine compartments aft, missile silo between the control room and the engine room. The crew could be anywhere, but Morrison's primary concern was the missile compartment. If the North Koreans decided to sabotage the nuclear weapon or blow the submarine, that's where they'd do it. The remaining 4 SEALs descended into the submarine through the now open hatch. All 8 operators were now inside the hostile vessel, deep in enemy territory, with 42 North Korean sailors somewhere in the compartments around them. At 01:49, the SEALs began clearing the submarine compartment by compartment. The process was slow, methodical, and terrifying. Every hatch could hide an armed sailor. Every dark corner could conceal an ambush. And the confined spaces meant that any gunfight would be brutal and close range. The crew quarters forward held 18 sailors, most of them young, frightened and unwilling to fight. They surrendered when the SEALs breached their compartment. But in the engine room aft, the SEALs encountered resistance. 5 North Korean sailors, armed with AK-47 rifles and knowing the submarine was lost, barricaded themselves in the engine compartment and opened fire the moment the SEALs opened the hatch. Bullets ricocheted off metal bulkheads in the confined space. 1 round grazed Petty Officer Chen's shoulder, a minor wound but a reminder of how quickly things could go wrong. The SEALs returned fire, their suppressed weapons spitting 5.56-meter rounds into the engine compartment. The engagement lasted 12 seconds. When it was over, all 5 North Korean sailors were dead or incapacitated. But the gunfire had been loud enough to echo through the submarine's hull. Now everyone knew the Americans were aboard, and somewhere in the submarine, the remaining sailors were making decisions about what to do next. At 02:03, Morrison and his team reached the missile compartment. The hatch was locked from the inside. Morrison keyed his radio. "Control actual, we're at the missile compartment. Hatch is secured from inside. Unknown number of hostile forces. Advising we have potential sabotage situation." The response from the Michael Mansour was immediate. "Actual control, authorized to breach. Neutralize any sabotage attempt. Do not allow them to destroy the weapon." Morrison looked at his team. They'd been fighting for 21 minutes inside a hostile submarine. 2 sailors wounded, minor injuries but still bleeding. Ammunition expenditure at 40%. And now they had to breach into a compartment where desperate men might be trying to blow up a nuclear weapon. Park, set a breaching charge on the hatch. Small charge, we don't know what's on the other side. Webb, Chen, prepare flashbangs. Everyone else, stack on me. We go in fast and we secure that weapon before anyone can touch it. The shaped charge cut through the hatch lock in a burst of sparks and smoke. Morrison kicked the hatch open and threw a flashbang. The grenade detonated. The seals poured through. The missile compartment was a vertical cylinder, 30 feet tall, with the Pukguksong 3 missile secured in its launch tube. Surrounding the missile were 6 North Korean sailors, 3 engineers and 3 officers. And in the hands of one officer was a demolition charge, wired to a detonator, positioned against the missile's fuel tank. The officer's thumb was on the detonator button. One press, and the fuel would ignite, destroying the missile, the nuclear warhead, the submarine, and everyone aboard. Morrison had his rifle aimed at the officer's head. Park had his sights on another sailor. Webb covered the others. Everyone was shouting, Korean and English mixing in the confined space, adrenaline and fear making voices sharp. Drop it, drop the detonator. The officer didn't move. His thumb trembled on the button. His eyes were wide, desperate. He was ready to die, ready to kill everyone. And then Chief Petty Officer Marcus Webb did something that would later be credited with saving the mission. He lowered his rifle, raised his hands, and spoke in broken Korean. Don't. Your crew. Still alive. You kill us, you kill them. Put it down. The officer hesitated. His thumb stayed on the button, but he didn't press. Your men. Forward compartment. 18 men. They surrender. They live. You press. Everyone dies. 10 seconds passed. The longest 10 seconds of Morrison's life. Then the officer's hand trembled. His thumb lifted from the button. He dropped the detonator. The SEALs surged forward, securing all 6 sailors, removing the demolition charge from the missile, and establishing control over the compartment. At 02:17, Morrison transmitted the message that would end the operation. Control, actual, missile compartment secured, weapon intact, submarine is ours. Over the next 4 hours, U.S. Navy damage control teams boarded the submarine, assessed the propulsion damage, and determined it could be towed. The 45 North Korean crew members were transferred to the USS Michael Mansour and placed in custody. The nuclear weapon was safed, disarmed, and placed under continuous guard by EOD specialists. At 06:45, as the sun rose over the Sea of Japan, the disabled North Korean submarine, now flying an American flag, was under tow by a U.S. Navy Fleet Ocean tug, heading east toward international waters. P-8 Poseidon aircraft and F/A-18 fighters established a protective cordon, ensuring no North Korean vessels could interfere. North Korea protested immediately, demanding the return of their submarine and crew. The U.S. government responded by revealing that the submarine had been carrying a nuclear weapon in international waters, a violation of multiple treaties, and that the crew had fired on U.S. personnel conducting a lawful inspection. The submarine would not be returned. The Pukguksong 3 missile and its nuclear warhead were transported to a secure facility, where they were disassembled and analyzed, providing invaluable intelligence about North Korean weapons capabilities. The submarine itself was studied by naval engineers before being scuttled in deep water 6 months later. The 8 SEALs from SEAL Team 5 received classified commendations for their actions. Lieutenant Commander Morrison was awarded the Navy Cross. The entire team received Silver Stars, and the operation became a case study in submarine boarding operations, proof that even the most dangerous missions could succeed with proper training, courage, and a little bit of luck. Now I want 3 perspectives from you. First, was the United States legally justified in seizing a disabled North Korean submarine in international waters, or did this operation violate maritime law? Second, should the SEALs have taken the risk of boarding a submarine with a nuclear weapon aboard, or should they have sunk it from a distance? Third, If the North Korean officer had detonated the explosive, killing everyone aboard, would the mission still have been worth attempting? Comment your detailed tactical and legal analysis below. Your insights drive the conversations we have on Navy warfare. And if this breakdown of the most dangerous submarine boarding in modern history gave you new respect for SEALs who conduct operations most people never hear about, prove it by hitting that like button, subscribing to Navy Warfare, and turning on notifications. Because when the mission is capturing a nuclear weapon from a hostile submarine, failure isn't an option. Until next time, stay informed, stay tactical, and remember, the most dangerous operations are the ones nobody knows happened.